Right. So, as we all know, this true story, is our taking justice in our own hands with regard to the Caribbean, with regard to material compensation for stuff that happened in the past and is ongoing today in a different form, right? Um, have you seen the one who denies the recompense, right? Now, a few points I want to make today because the book says that the recompense is to occur, right? So we will stay within this path, right? And if after 114, and I will keep faith until 114, and if after 114 there's nobody who contact me from that arena, British, Dubai, wherever all you have the vault, right? If nobody contacts me, America, White House, right? Then I will know who to direct you all to worship in order to seek justice, right? And to take justice into your own hands, right? Um, so we are continuing. Allah is the one and true God and having faith in that. Allah is the only true God worthy of worship, right? A few points I want to make. One, with regard to charity and donations, this is all had to do with recompense and so on, right? Meaning the distribution of wealth to those who do not have, right? So one, when you go into church and the church asks you to give and to give according to your salary, right? Nothing is wrong with that. That is fair. That is fine, right? But that money should not only be going towards the pastor. When the pastor receives that money, the pastor should ensure that that money is distributed among the poor in whatever community he or she resides in, right? Secondly, or at least some of it, or some of it is for the pastor because he's the one distributing the knowledge, right? So let's just make these things clear, right? Um, Two, as we are saying, given according to what you earn, and not what you earn, right, but what you inherit, right? What you inherit, right? Um, some of us have already paid, right, for whatever we inherit. Some people have not, right, in the world, right? A lot have not, right? So you inherit material, financial resources, right? You don't expect if I am working for $10,000, right, and I give uh, $3,000. Say for example, right? I do expect somebody who inherit from the grandfather or auntie or uncle, rich auntie or uncle, $30 million, right, to be given $2,000, right? You are evil, right? You are evil, right? If that's the case, right? Um, One, that person, somebody else is working every month like a donkey, right, to get a salary, which is minimal, right? And some people working for $2,000-3,000 TT, right? Some people are working like a donkey, right, to get a minimum survival rate, right? And some people inherit all kind of trillions, billions, millions of dollars, right, from their uncle, mother, father, auntie, nan, and whoever, right? And you are selfish and you are greedy and you are evil, right? So those are the points that I want to make, right? You give according to what you, one, inherit, right? Two, you earn, right? And Allah will sort this out, right? And three, according to the type of work that you do, right? Somebody who's in our office just signing off stuff, right? You don't expect somebody who's manually laboring, sweating, construction, so on, to be donating, right? Because they are expending actual physical energy, right? And require more to sustain themselves, right? Than a person who is working for a large amount of money in an office just signing off stuff. So you'll understand what I mean. So Allah's going to sort out all these things and recompense, right, will take place, right? I maintain that Allah is the only God worthy of worship, right? Right. So those are the points I want to make with regard to that. Right. Secondly, expending resources on waste things, right, such as inappropriate or unnecessary competitions and so on, right? Redirecting that kind of resources. So you have things like Miss Universe. I think I saw something came out about Mr. Universe recently at some point, right? Because they wanted to equalize that. No, we equalize that by getting rid of the two, right? Miss Universe, Mr. Universe, whatever. We don't want either, right? It is part of the seduction team, right? and we don't want them kind of thing. The resources that it takes to actually bring these competitions together, right? And in the name of fake unity and so on, right? There's a lot more going on in the world that's deserving of that kind of resources that is put into those things, right? So think about how illogical it is. You're spending all these resources. Think about the amount of resources going into the dress wear, the gowns, the bikini, the high heels, right? For somebody to come on a platform to seduce the judges about who to pick, right? Just so that somebody could say, hey, I'm traveling to Africa, or traveling to this country, I'm traveling to that country to do a little charity, right? And you're expending all the amount of resources, right? Think about this, right? But all you wouldn't like me. Nobody going to like me, right? Here what? You're spending all these resources, right, to bring together this sickening competition, right? And I'm talking about it being sickening only from the point of resources, right? This competition, right, in which women are asked to what? Not display no talent, but seduce a judge because of unconscious and subconscious thinking and psychological manipulation, right, about who to pick, right, to go somewhere in the world and do a little charity when the resources that are in the thing is more than the charity that you're given. The resources being put together to the competition is most likely more than the amount of money that you're going to be given in charity and pretend charity, right? I don't want no part to play. I had nothing to do with withdraw your energy. I'm talking to all Muslims all over the world, all spiritual people all over the world, everybody all over the world. Withdraw your energy from looking at these things, right? When you withdraw your energy from looking at it, there's no audience. Right? There's no audience. So their performance are empty. They are performing to the devil, right? They are performing to the devil, right? There's no audience, right? There's no audience, right? At least I had to do reasons. When you withdraw your energy from these competitions, right? The competitions, Miss Universe, so on, right? There is no audience, zero, zilch, right? So, at least if nobody watching my videos, I just watch my videos, right? But withdraw your competition from Miss Universe, Mr. Universe, right? Miss TNT, Miss World, right? There will be nobody watching, right? Who you are performing to, who you are pretending to, that you are going to XYZ to give, right? The next thing, tokenism and Miss Universe, right? So they give us, Wendy Fitzwilliams, right? Get Miss Universe once, or Miss World, whatever it was, once, right? And it's like, hey, let's give the Caribbean that, let's give Trinidad and Tobago that, and let them remember that in history, right? Let them remember that in history, right? So they get a little fame, a little recognition on the world stage, and yeah, content all yourself with that, right? Content all yourself with that, right? It is psychological manipulation, and I hope people realize this, right? Realize, right? Is a nice phrase that I always see on Facebook, right? Realize, right? It's psychological manipulation, right? If you are really interested in helping the world, you would actually denounce these things or speak out against it, right? Speak out against it and speak for the resource allocation to be allocated in a different manner, right? Have you seen the one who denies recompense? For that is the one who drives away the orphan and does not encourage the feeding of the poor, right? So pray and be heedful, right? Take heed of your prayer. So when you pray, don't only pray with regard to lip service, right? You don't pray you don't pray in a form of letting your prayer be lip service only, right? Meaning it's not just a repetition thing that you do day in, day out. Like actually connect with God. Ask God in sincerity for what it is that you righteously desire, right? And bring your actions in alignment that will make you a recipient of that which you righteously desire, right? Those who make show of right, so do not make show of your deeds, right? If I give X amount of money in charity, I don't want to come here on camera and say, hey, because who am I speaking to? I don't know who I'm speaking to when I come here, right? That is a private affair between you and Allah, right? And do not withhold simple assistance. I mean, like if you're in a position to just help somebody, right, in any particular situation that you're given, that you're placed in, right, just do it, right? Good. So question, and this is my question going out to the Islamic Scholarly Society, right? In terms of charity giving and so on, and it really is going deep into reality, right? And accessing that divine reality, knowledge of reality, right? How do you know? Should it be a question of who is deserving of charity, or should it not be, right? Should it be a question of who is deserving of charity, or should it not be, right? Is a question. Because if you, as an Islamic scholar, right, or a teacher of spiritual wisdom, right, is adhering to certain values and principles, right, and then you are in a situation where somebody is, for example, drinking, smoking, right, or consuming things that you are preaching against, right, or you are teaching to not to go down that path, right, and they are asking for $10 or $5 or $20 or so on, right, to get something to eat. How should you respond to that when you are seeing in front of your eyes that person is, say, drinking a beer, that person is smoking a cigarette, and these are things that you are actively against, right, and actively Allah is against these things, right, but Allah is also pro-charity, right? So how should you treat with that situation if you are presented within a situation? Because I find myself sometimes very confused within that situation, right, and it happened repeatedly in my life, right? So should you give freely with no qualms in your heart, say, yeah, I'm giving? Or do you have to go through the karma of enabling that kind of activity, right? So I hope that this question can reach somebody, because it is about really accessing knowledge of deeper realities, right? And also, should you just give it simply because, hey, we went through certain things in the past, for example, in the Caribbean, right? And things would have contributed to people behaving like this, right? Because not everybody's strong like me and you mentally, right, to deal with life situations, right? So how do you treat with situations like this? So should it even be a thought, am I evil, right, for having that thought in my mind when I should just be given that $20 or that $100 or something freely with no ill will towards anybody else, right? So that's a question that I would like answered, right? Asim Hakim as well as answering questions. I would like that question answered from you or anybody else, to be honest, right? So have a good day, everybody. We'll move on to Surah. What is this? This was Surah 107. So we move on to, and that is regarding assistance, right? So we move on to Surah 108, inshallah, tomorrow.